Welcome to hour three. Um, really nice to see you all here. Our next talk comes from UX Auckland, from Haunani Powell. She's going to be talking about all of the Web3 things. I'm super excited because I've been working in Web3 a lot this year, so I'm going to learn a lot. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Peter, for inviting me to 24 Hours of UX. I hope that this will be a good talk. I'm gonna
We're sure
just
it
go
will
ahead
be.
and I'm just gonna get right into it and share my screen.
I will disappear for you.
Alrighty. Let's see how I did that. Okay, I think it was this one. Yep, there we go. Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Haunani Powell, and I guess I'm the managing organizer for User Experience Auckland, which is the local UX group here in Auckland, New Zealand, Aotearoa. And as the map points out, we're like right at the bottom of the world. And we do some pretty interesting things there. But before I get started, I just want to thank 24 Hours of UX for inviting me to have this conversation with you. Here's all my details that you can look for me, and also our Discord for UXA. This is actually kind of a journey that I want to share with you that I've been into for the past 6 or 7 months or so. And it's basically, I want to discuss my journey of how I got started learning about crypto and Web3 and things like that. Some of the things that I've learned along the way, and some insights that I think you should know about. And I'm going to take this approach that you know as little as I knew when I started this. So I'm going to try to keep it simple and as best I can. So to get started, one time, like I said, UXA, we have a Discord, and I kind of have a rep in Auckland, um, and that rep is I play games. And I'm one of those people at work who will bring games for Fridays or something. And I will create meetup events and I will just play games in general. And the reason I do that with work is I think it's a great way to get to know people, to learn about people in a way that there's not really hierarchy involved. You know, you're using logic, you're following some rules, you're also just letting your hair down a little bit and just relaxing. This is like my last job where during lunch we were playing this game called Love Letters, and it was just funny to watch how sneaky people were as we were playing this game. And I guess I've been playing games for a while. I never really thought of it as a thing, except this is my game room at home. um, and I love it because I get to see all the beautiful things that people create in games. Um, and so it wasn't really so surprising that somebody would come to me on Discord, and she just wanted to share with me her um, her example, her experience that she's been doing with this thing called Fluff World and ASM Altered State Machine. Now, these are local Auckland companies, Web3 companies, and they're in the gaming sphere. Fluff World creates these 3D avatars that also have like a burrow, and they sell these things on a marketplace, and they have a Discord, and there's a lot of people that are involved with it. And the reason she was into it was because um, they were local to New Zealand, and New Zealand is one of those places where the local people get a lot of street cred compared to always finding things out in the rest of the world. So she was sharing this with me, and she was also talking about ASM, which was this. Um, they're kind of like the brains, you know. Uh, the thing about the thing about this company is they create these little brains that could go into um, your NFT, your fluffy bunny, and there could be some things that happen there. And it was using perhaps the democratization of artificial intelligence as a community to create these things. So that's kind of the main way that I went into this. And as a gamer, since I've been playing World of Warcraft, um, and that's me, that's my tune. I mean, I understood why it would be fun to be doing something with a bunch of people, make having the same context, and just taking on the digital world and having a good time. But in our conversation, and I think part of it is they were trying to find out what we were interested in and saying why they were having such a great time about it. But I realized I didn't know a lot um, about Web3 or about. Oh, see, somebody knows about Fluff World. That's awesome. So I just didn't know a lot, and so I started asking pretty much everybody I knew at first. I mean, being in the tech industry, I knew a lot of developers. Being a gamer, I knew a lot of gamers. So they were the first people that I would just ask, like, have you heard of this before? Do you know about what a fluff world is? Do you know about any of these things? And what I was getting was that a whole lot of people that I knew didn't know as much as I did. Um, and I started thinking back a bit, like, wow, how did this happen? How did, oops, sorry, how did this bit happen where a lot of my really smart people didn't know what was going on? So I kind of reflected and kind of dove in. And I guess in the Matrix world, I took the red pill and I wanted to find out what was going on. So with that, I just want to kind of give you a bit of my career or a timeline of what I've done. I and the reason is because I relied on my experiences and my knowledge to help piece together this puzzle of what is crypto, what is blockchain, what is an NFT, what is a Web3, and trying to understand and recognize what those things meant to me. So I actually graduated in 1994, right when we started using the internet. True. I mean, we had Mosaic and I think Netscape were the competing browsers at the time. And I was developer working at a company called Fair Isaac, which is anybody who's American knows that that's the FICO score that they use to address your app. Yes, I was one of those people. And the thing is that we knew nothing about what was going on. I mean, we dialed up on the internet to go onto the internet. Um, I remember learning how to do things like HTML or trying to learn how to do art or anything like that that was digital, and I had to do it all myself. I mean, at that time, things were pretty decentralized. You not only were a person who read what was on the browser, but you would also be a person who would create content that would go on to a browser, and you'd have a server and you'd have to FTP your files that you created. And I remember you didn't have really fancy tools. It was really just typing and following the syntax and putting things in the right order and then put it up there and yay, people can read it. And that was pretty exciting because it was pretty new. And it was a lot about learning and sharing and a lot of trying. And it was just really when you're when you're a young person that starts out in careers in your 20s, it's pretty neat and cool to be doing something new that the people before you aren't really doing and feeling like you had something, right? You were doing something that nobody else was doing. Um, and that was kind of the beginning of all that. And then all of a sudden, well, I guess it wasn't in the sudden, but then we had the dot com bust, which everybody talks about, but basically was all the tech stocks that were rising up. Some of it kind of exploded. And it didn't affect me because I was working in the tech field, but it did affect a lot of people who were doing the startups that were coming about during this era. And I remember with a friend, we used to we used to go to a lot of these little startup companies that were selling off. They were auctioning off all their stuff, and that's when I figured out everybody liked these Heron Miller chairs, these really comfortable chairs, I guess, and really fancy, um, you know, furniture. And I'm like, did you guys spend all your money on how you looked? What did you make? It was one of those things, and I felt pretty good that I was in just a normal enterprise job, so um, I wasn't really affected by the dot com bust. But it was a thing where a lot of people lost a lot of their money. And then, um, we started with the next thing, which was uh, the iPhone. And I do think the iPhone was one of those things that was quite revolutionary. It was, I remember buying this. I still have the phone, my first mobile phone. It was like a brick, but I could flip flip it up and I could type on it if with the little tiny fingers if I had any. But this iPhone, which everybody had, it was super cool and it could have pictures and you could do all these things. And it really changed how we would make things that would show up not just on our browser, but also on the phone. And I think it was also how we took pictures and how we shared everything on these services that were no longer me trying to figure out how to upload something to a server. It was these centralized servers that had everything for me, that I could just type things in a blog, or it's what we have now with a lot of social media. We could just put our thoughts. We could show images, um, and that's where things kind of changed because uh, these centralized systems, they basically did some of the things we just didn't want to do. I mean, I will admit in Web 1, I'm not sure I always wanted to constantly keep on keeping my little world of internet going when I could just use a service who could do that for me. When really I just want to share a thought or I want to see what other people were doing. I wasn't necessarily wanting to do all that. And I think that's pretty normal. Well, with then came that global recession. And that global recession, I mean, I think that some of the younger people, they may not have understood what that meant. But, for some people, that was really a hard situation that hit all the rest of the world, right? In the sense that it affected people's jobs, it affected their homes. And it was, I think, very much a reason why we got Bitcoin. That Bitcoin came out suspiciously around that same time and started its trajectory of being this different thing. And I'll get into that. And then the rest of it, I think we all know what that is, and that's, other parts that have really influenced our world these days, particularly with, COVID lockdowns and with the rise of the NFTs. But with that, with the NFTs, it's like we've gone back to Web 1, where, and they call it Web 3, but it's really a reaction, I think, to some of the things we learned in Web 2, where we were basically these companies were monetizing the value of our data and our choices and made revenue and influence. I think that's what Web3 is that reaction to that. But in my what I've learned, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's completely what everybody thinks Web3 is, this distributed thing. Anyway, moving on. I I took that in mind simply because I didn't know a lot. And I remember even when at my job, what is Ethereum? And it's like laughingly we'll say it's a really slow database, something like that. It was only one of my friends that actually was a person who did the work. He actually got the computers and he was mining Bitcoin as long as it made sense. Once it was unprofitable, he shut that all down. But that was as much as I knew. So I had to do the Google thing, right? And see what was out there. Like, how do you get started? And what I found is it's usually this really simple customer journey of you just inform yourself that you're going to know what all this stuff means. You're going to connect by choosing a wallet, and then you're going to put some money on the wallet, right? And then once you do that, you're free to join all the communities and use that money somewhere because it is sort of money, right? Digital money, and you could just do amazing things with it. Um, in this case, what I'm showing is called popcorn. Uh, they're kind of an interesting project. And the thing that they like to do is that you will connect and deposit your money, and then you will do well. You will do good in the world, social good. And that sort of ties into maybe how we feel about these kind of things, right? Anyway, I this is what I was in my Google search is what I was finding, this really simplistic marketing teaser that you just connect, put some money on it, go forth. It's all going to be good. You'll have fun. Um, and what I found is that this was more my reality of what really went into understanding how that worked. And I just took it from a typical marketing type of approach where first I had to understand what is crypto, like why am I doing this? It's because somebody who knew I was into games talked to me about it and I got curious. That's like the main thing. But then I had to figure out, the one thing we're right is how do you figure out what this all means? And I had to learn about crypto and then trying to find which is the source of truth because it's not like they have a Wikipedia for all this information. It's actually all over the place, which was uncomfortable. And trying to delve through what's real and what's just hype, but finding the information and then actually getting a wallet, which was really unnerving. I looked at so many different wallets because I'm an American that lives in New Zealand. So my choices are not just New Zealand, it's also, I have choices with my American um, area of the world. And there were some wallets that only worked in America and other wallets that worked everywhere else. So which one did I pick? Which one should I use? Which bank account should I use to put money into it? That kind of thing. And then understanding, what is how to use it and understand what these difference of these keys and these private keys and these secret passphrases. And I mean, it's overwhelming if you have to think of three things when we've already gone through years of Web 2 where somebody else kind of take care of that, or I used my Facebook or my Twitter ID to get something. Now I had to sit back and think again. It was that world one again in my early career where I had to do everything in the every step of the way. So when you pick one, I picked one, then you get an exchange, and the exchange allows you to buy some crypto. But before that, you have to see what the price is. You have to see how much it would cost because every transaction in this sphere costs money. That's really different than Web 2, right? I mean, you could get something, but because you're using a service, they pay for the cost of that transaction. And then they take all the information about where did I go, right? That's the trade off. So I'd have to figure that out. And then still, some cases where I'm trying to deal with the money source, I may have to show a driver's license or a passport or take a selfie just to make that transaction actually happen. And that's not anything that they had in the, the easy way of getting onto crypto. This was extra bits that I didn't even know and think about that I had to consider. And then on top of that, after that, I would finally buy the ETH. And you have to sit there and look and say, do you buy it at this point or do you wait till it goes up or down? And at the time I was buying, I mean, the world of crypto and blockchain was rocking the world. It's not like today, which is quite humbling to watch how it's being have to deal with how much it's fallen. But anyway, you end up buying ETH, and then you just store that in your wallet, and then what? Well, that's the thing where I can now go buy an NFT, or I can go ahead and join a metaverse, or I can do something because now my wallet is sort of says who I am in the webverse, right? So that was that was kind of the journey, and it was really um, ridiculously uncomfortable. Sometimes it took longer than I expected because I wasn't just going to just do it. I would read all these other things, or I'd start looking at videos on YouTube. Do I really want to use this wallet? Do I really want to spend it on use this credit card? Something like that was always in the back of my mind that I moved slowly compared to, I think, the way the hype is to make it is get it on your phone and go off, and your day is going to be amazing. And what they fail to tell you too, and something that's really clear, is that if you have a problem, like you get hacked, there's no there's no way they can really fix it. It is one of those one way only type of things. There is no backseas. There is no changing the lane. You're just going to have to go through it. So if you have a problem, they don't really discuss that. So I kind of wrote that out because I did have a problem. Anyway, that's kind of what I mapped out already. So by the numbers, the things that you should know is that right now, about 300 million people own crypto worldwide. That's not even the population of America. However, 46 million of those 300 are Americans. So it seems that there's quite a bit of things going on in the world, dealing with who are the people that are in this area. But that's not a lot compared to 7.6 billion people in the world. That's quite a small bit of people that are in the crypto world. With that said, 19 of them made became billionaires, made from crypto, and they're all men. And of the 2,668 billionaires in the world, according to Forbes magazine, that's about 0.00000034 of the world population are billionaires from crypto. That kind of tells you quite a lot that it's a small universe of people that somehow made things happen for them. But moving on, uh, Web3 Web3 things, they're called projects. They're not called products like the Web2 world. They're called projects. And evidently there's over 9,000 of them going on right now. All types of projects, because if this is this distributed um, atmosphere, I guess, for how you would use it with your daily, or for how we do things right now, which is, you know, Twitter or Facebook, Instagram or Pinterest. Well, they had to build everything, build all those connections, right? And that is over 9,000 of them. With that said, there is about 88% of the market value is by the top 10 cryptos, and there are over 12,000 cryptocurrencies. So only the top 10 have the bulk of all the market value. With that said, there is also 200 crypto exchanges. That's how you trade crypto, different types of crypto, buy crypto, all those kind of things. It's trading. And on top of that, there's only about 18,000 businesses that accept crypto as payment. And I didn't include the countries that are all crypto all the time. Hello, El Salvador. But there are places that are obviously trying to use crypto as a form of payment. So maybe it's like Apple Pay in that case. But that is kind of by the numbers. And if I could just describe this a little bit more with the billionaires, here they all are, all 19 of them. And as you could tell, they are all men. The majority of them are Americans. About 6 of them are Asians. Quite a few young men, but most of them are, it's between 30 and 50 something years old. But to look at what they are, these are the things of how they got the source of their wealth. And a lot of them are actually the exchanges and the services that are in this domain. Only about 4 of them actually made their billions from owning Bitcoin or owning something like that, where because it's just on the price that they made money from that. But most of them, they've either created some kind of company that is the big dog in the Web3 pool, and most of it's all financial. Well, except OpenSea. OpenSea is a marketplace for NFTs, and Alchemy, which is these 2 handsome gentlemen. They're kind of the backbone of how distributed apps or dApps work on the Web3 ecosystem. So I thought I would just point that out. So let's just go over some things in case you didn't know. So remember, we had the global meltdown, and then Bitcoin came out. And it came out from a person named Satoshi Nakamoto, which evidently in Japanese, I think something similar to central intelligence, but let's just say the central origin of intelligent history. And I think that's just a bit of a meme and a joke. They never identified who they are. Don't know if it's male or female. I think it's male. Don't know if it's 1 male or 6 males. But what happened is that he wrote this white paper that described peer-to-peer exchange of digital value. So that means it could be anything, right? But let's just say money without a third party to solve a compute by solving a computer puzzle that's called the Byzantine Generals problem. And basically, what that describes is a consensus mechanism, and it's a way a way of these different types of nodes, I guess, can agree somehow through cryptography that something is acceptable. That's the best way I can sort of say it. Um, One of the things that I think I'll point out is that when he set out Bitcoin on January 9th, when it was first mined, this raw hex version was what came out. And right there in this corner, it actually kind of points out this talk about a bailout for the banks. Because remember, this time there was the global meltdown. And this, I believe that Bitcoin was it was a direct reaction to that, and they put that actually in their comments. Um, other thing about Bitcoin too is I don't know if many people knew about it. I mean, I think the only thing I heard was that it was being used on the Silk Road, where you can go and buy all the best drugs and have it delivered to your door using Bitcoin as the currency for this anonymous buying. Um, with that said, it is this idea of a digital currency that's on an open source ledger, that is shared across many computers. So it's basically a copy of the ledger on these computers that have the software, because I call it software, that will allow this transaction to go and to happen. It relies on what they call as a consensus mechanism, but basically they're rules. And if there are certain rules that don't follow it, they ignore whatever comes into their, I guess, their sphere of calm, whatever you want to call that. But it is on the blockchain, these different nodes working together. Um, and yeah, I'm going to move on because this is even harder for me. Uh, the thing I heard a lot with people with Bitcoin was this meme that if they bought some Bitcoin early on, but they lost their wallet, so it was a thing. I think tells me a lot of people felt like I did. It was not something you paid attention to, and nor did you find all that realistic. But it was the first thing to kind of put out there this idea that we're not using banks, we're not using a centralized bank to exchange value. And that was probably pretty unusual and scary to banks themselves, who are constantly being dealt with by regulations, by the rules of their countries, and just how people, I mean, how people use banks today. And being a person that lives in New Zealand, but is American and has American bank, this would interest me because trying to deal with that of transferring money or dealing with money in both countries is a challenge I have to deal with all the time because this is my home. Anyway, moving on. About 2015, this young man called Vitalik, I'm sorry, Buterin, he is really well known for Ethereum. So there's a lot of memes. There's even something he wrote about is that he was playing World of Warcraft, where, you know, we have something in common there. And he saw that there was some changes made in the game, and it just made him cry. He felt sad, and he stopped playing. And he decided that there's evil in centralized systems, and so he moved on to start really getting into Bitcoin. And being underage, I think that's something you can probably do pretty reasonably without too much problems because you could just focus on that type of thing. And evidently, he's a pretty smart cat. But in doing so, he was writing this magazine called the Bitcoin Magazine. And all he did was talk about Bitcoin and decentralized apps. And I think it crafted his coding knowledge of how he wanted to create something. And so he created Ethereum, which is based off of World of Warcraft, by the way. And it came live at August 2015 at 31 cents per coin, and he raised 16 million. And what he did that's different, what Ethereum did that's different than blockchain, Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin was really just money, right? It's just a digital currency and a blockchain. But what Ethereum was is not just, it was like tokens, could be anything that's a digital asset, not just money. So that was different. And the other thing that it did was this thing called, they call it smart contracts, but it's basically agreements, or it's in a form, I guess it's a form of code when conditions are met, then that contract is executed to the terms of the agreement. And it was a way for people who are anonymous to be able to do that exchange of value in a way that, I don't know, sometimes it feels a little bit like if you're buying a home and you have to put something in escrow. It's a little bit like that, where the smart contract is holding something in check until the conditions are met, and then it does the exchange. So you can write a smart contract for anything. And I think those are the two major differences from Bitcoin that made it really interesting, particularly for all these people here that are in the banking industry, or they're in the tech industry, or the gas industry. All of these are investors or are doing projects or anything like that based on Ethereum. And it is in many ways this, I don't know, I don't want to say golden child. I don't want to say it's a thing that they're putting a lot of energy and investment and time into because its rules allow them to be flexible on what kind of projects and what kind of things they could do. All right. Okay, moving on. Oh, there's one thing I should say. When you code, we don't always code perfectly. We don't. We make mistakes all the time. And Ethereum back in the day had some code that maybe wasn't the best. And what happened is somebody waited till it went live and exploited that code, being a gamer, smart, cheeky bastard. Um, and they ended up like taking $50 million of Ethereum, just like that, because that's the trust in code, right? So what they ended up doing is they did what's called a hard fork and they split it. And so they have Ethereum, which is where all these companies are on, and then Ethereum Classic, which was those who accepted the deal of the game of what happened there in that situation. And it's something they talk about as the history of Ethereum. And it also reminds us though that we as coders make mistakes all the time, right? And not everything is as it seems. So this gets to what I think most people want to understand is what's the blockchain. So in the blockchain is basically an append only. You can only put things on the blockchain. You can't take things out. You can't change things. You can only put it on it, and it's this ledger that everybody knows and that it's shared, where it's organized by batches of transactions or blocks. That's why it's called the blockchain, right? So these batches have uh, are looked upon by three different types of nodes. One's called a spotter, a miner, and a validator on this distributed computer network. And remember, in this case, those are different computers all over the world. They're not, they're not in one place in the middle of somewhere. They're kind of just all over. I'll do it that way. But what they do is when they put this transaction, these transactions in the batch on the blockchain, is they have miners who compete with each other by solving basically a cryptographic math problem, and that math problem could be very complex depending on how many people are trying to solve it. Those are the miners, right? When it's solved, you basically, it's much easier to verify because it's kind of an equation that you put the data in from the block and spits out an answer. With that said, when they do it, when the miners solve it, they get a block reward. And at the time, the block reward would have been actual parts of the coin. So original blockchain Bitcoin rewards were like 50 Bitcoins. Now they're like 6 Bitcoins. But they solve it that way through it's called a proof of work, and there's also proof of stake, but I'm not going to get into that. But those are just protocols of ways of solving these things. And because of all this, it's really slow. Uh, and that's kind of the truth about anything with the blockchain world, is it moves slower than transactions with Visa by a lot. And that's because of this distributed network. It's also because of how they're trying to solve things with through math. And it's just a lot of because of that slowness, they actually charge fees. So this is again different from how Web World 2 world is, right? Because uh, we use something free, we exchange our data, our value of our data with that, using that thing for free. And here it's no, you're paying somebody to be able to put whatever happened onto the blockchain. And that comes in two ways. One is a gas fee, and that's where you always hear gas, or whenever you look at anything, it says gas. That is basically something that incentivizes the miners to choose your item. And then the other one is actually a transaction fee, and that's actually charged by the exchange used for the service. So in many ways, every time there's a transaction, it's being charged quite a bit by different entities, and sometimes that part is where it gets expensive. Okay, moving on. The other thing is a wallet. So a wallet, it's an account that holds all your digital assets. It's as if you have your debit card that you have for everybody to see, and they can send something to you, right? Um, that's the address. That's your public address, and that allows people to send crypto or things to you. And then there's a private key, which is a way that you sign or accept a transaction. I don't think that's very clear. It's not like I would have. I guess. Well, wait a minute. I guess if you're going to shop and you're going to use like your credit card or your debit card, um, a PIN number, maybe I think the closest to a private key, where I my public key is the card, and then I put in my private key, and then the transaction happens. The thing about this that you have to understand and why it's really important is that there's no oversight, there's no regulations, there's no protections on a wallet. Um, it's a lot of times it's non-custodial, meaning that it is a point of reference for you and a website, but it doesn't hold as much of your private information as you may think. So, um, with that said, don't share anything with a person. Don't share your secret keys. Don't share any of that stuff. Um, there's a lot of shenanigans going on with how the market has been. And so, a lot of people, including me, have been hurt by that. And the safest wallet you'll ever have is one that's not connected to an internet. That's just like your regular wallet, but they have these hard wallets where you can move everything in there. Anyway, so that's kind of the main bits and pieces. Oh, one more. NFTs and Metaverse. So, an NFTs, for lack of a better words, I'm going to say it's a certificate of ownership. That's probably even wrong in some cases. I think a lot of people have opinions about what an NFT is, but it's basically something that records that digital thing on the blockchain. It can be anything, an NFT. It could be art, it could be music, it could be an avatar in a game, it could be your high school diploma, it could be your birth certificate, it could be your mortgage, it could be anything where that value is as a token that gets put on the blockchain. But the thing about an NFT is it's really an URL. I mean, it's it's an address URL that points to a thing on a server. That's it. That server that holds whatever your thing is can be viable to it can lose it. It can somebody can change it. It's not very safe, but that NFT that's on the blockchain, that that pointer, that address is the thing that says you are the owner of that NFT. It says that you have it, but it's not necessarily the thing that you bought. That thing that you bought, if you want it to be ultra safe, you would need to transfer it over to you. You need to put it into a hard wallet, take it off the internet, and yeah, you hold it. It's yours. Um, it's also with the NFT, um, it's a unique thing. I mean, unlike a Bitcoin for a Bitcoin, you can trade that. Like a dollar for a dollar, you can trade that. Me, we are unique things. We are an NFT in that case. It talks about uniqueness. And so you will see that when the big thing that everybody the last year is these digital arts, these apes, these all these different kind of things. They show some sort of uniqueness because a lot of times they're basically put together. They like an artist will create something separately, and then a program will put them together in different ways, derivatives, and that becomes this unique thing. And that unique thing gets sold or put on a marketplace like OpenSea that other people will bid for, just like you would on eBay, or in New Zealand, it's Trade Me, where you will pay ETH or Bitcoin in this case as the way to buy that thing, and then that thing that you bought is a thing that goes into your wallet if you wanted to, but it's just to tell everybody else you owe that thing. It's it's an interesting it's an interesting thing because I think in this world, I know that I would never be able to own the Mona Lisa, or I would never be able to own a Monet, some of my favorite things to that I love, but I can own a digital version where Mona Lisa looks like Jason Momoa, and I'd probably be pretty happy. So it is one of those kind of things where it you're like owning an earl to a thing that everybody knows that you own, but it doesn't stop them from taking a copy of that thing and doing something derivative with it. Not really. The other thing is a metaverse. So I call it when the real world and the digital world makes an ugly baby because I'm used to World of Warcraft, where even though it's centralized, it's quite beautiful. There's music, there's a lot of thought put into the beauty of that game. And when you go into a metaverse, to me, it's like a work in progress. And that's mostly because if you have certain types of hardware like a VR or something like Oculus, you will see a different world. But most of the times, I look at it as we humans in a COVID world want to get together and talk, play games, just do things where we can immerse ourselves in that experience and be in a community. Um, I will show you some examples of some of the things I did, but that's kind of the gist of it. Um, so I want to talk about NFTs. So one of the things about this world is that a lot of things are on Discord, and Discord is a gamer Slack with benefits. And all the main projects, OpenSea, MetaMask, Web3, Ethereum, all of these have Discords. Fluff World has Discords. And once I went into that, I started getting a lot of messages, direct messages like this that I'm showing you. And these are people trying to get me to buy an NFT. And this is where I think the thoughts of what that world can be seems pretty uncomfortable. Um, and that's mostly because well, this one kind of shows it what it is, right? There's always a reference that I'm a male, always. It just seems a bit backwards, but this is very much some of the things you will see in NFT world that's not very nice. But this is something I would say is very nice. This is Jackie Say. He actually does digital art. I would love to have some of his art on my wall, but I had to show you something nice other than an NFT. With that said, though, there are collections, and they are NFTing everything that I think they can think of. One of them is colors. Like, can you imagine if you own the NFT for the color black, and then if you were able to trade the value of you owning that and got something from it, you would make a lot of money because who doesn't type everything in black or on a white background? Um, a lot of things that I'm seeing with a lot of NFT, with a lot of artists, and I've seen artists who like get away with me. I don't want any of that. That's BS. To others that on Facebook have been approached, we really like your work on something, will you make some NFTs? And right here was a person who was sharing some of the work that she did about making women, which suspiciously looks like this very popular women NFT that's on OpenSea, in the sense that it's the same topic, the same subject matter, but it could be anything. And right now, I think, again, from the when you look at what happened in 2008, we have money. Where do you want to put your money? And I think that people will be excited to use this in a metaverse like Decentraland. So, Decentraland is a metaverse where you can log on. You can actually go as a guest. You don't even need to have a wallet. But if you walk around, it feels a little bit like Minecraft. It's not very amazing, but basically a I feel like it's a game, but it's a game with different types of people. Um, you can walk around, you can look at things. You will be immersed in artwork that you can buy just on OpenSea, or you can click on something and it will take you to a website, right? Um, it will uh, it, it's kind of an interesting situation, but I think it might be better if I had like a Oculus or something like that. I just don't. And where you can interact. And I've done a few of like mostly Microsoft things where you can sit and have conversations with people and watch a video that's on YouTube. Decentraland's showing a lot of those same type of things where they're allowing you to see tickets and watch your favorite TV music artists. I know Snoop Dogg's doing the same thing. He's going to have music. He's going to share his NFTs of his looks. It's definitely the marketing thing of things, and it's just because we like to be in this immersive situation. And if you click on individuals, you can actually see information about themselves, what NFTs they have they want to sell. So it allows you to get value of selling or buying things that make you really unique and stand out in this universe, which I totally understand from being in World of Warcraft, where I have certain gear that showed I rating, or I have these type of things. So I get it. So I want to leave you with a few things about what you need to think about going forward. This is not a newbie friendly universe. Um, the literacy is really distributed. It's challenging to learn. The customer journey is oversimplified. The jargon is cross between computer tech and Wall Street finance, and it makes it complicated. It makes it really hard to understand. So that's one thing to think about. There's a lot of hype, and the hype is just to get you to buy into crypto. Um, there's a lot of positive and negative hype. Um, there's a lot of cult of personality for people who are really into crypto, like Elon Musk. People will follow them up. It's a bit over the top, but just take that and understand that. In the end, all the intermediaries win. So the very thing they talk about with peer-to-peer without a trusted third party to do a transaction, it seems to me that all the third parties are the ones who are making bank in here. It's the Coinbase. It's the um, I'm sorry, I can hear you. Can you mute yourself, please? So it just kind of shows that maybe Web3 didn't really happen. Maybe this idea is that there's some excitement there, but it's still very much the third party making the most money, as all the billionaires I showed you. One thing too is that I wish it went beyond mobile. If you want to look at information, you can go to a website on a web page in a browser on your computer. If you want to transact, if you want to buy something, it's always on mobile. And I wish they would realize not everybody is going to be a 23-year-old on their mobile phone buying things. So I wish it was beyond that. There's a lot of scams. and a lot of theft. And if you get messed up, there is no hope. It is not regulated. There are no government policies on it yet. China kicked it out. China kicked it out, and a lot of the people who were mining in China took all their equipment and moved it to the middle of some place that had cheap energy and set up camp, and they're back in mining. In fact, a lot of mining is done by these big organizations because that's a lot of money. So I think because of this, and I have to say I've went through that. I'll tell you a little story. I don't know what the hell happened. It was when Luna and um, would crash and burn. Somehow I gave out my secret phrase. They took all my crypto. I didn't have a lot because I was only using it for investigations, but they took it. There's not much I can do. I did investigate. I did share it with MetaMask, and I just said, maybe there's some things you need to think about to help a person understand um, that this happened. Uh, NFTs are quite speculative. I think people invest in it because, again, the 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 global thing that happened in 2008, there was a lot of speculation in basically mortgages, right? They made mortgages into bonds, and they were using that as a way to change up the whole buying a house, and a lot of people got hurt when everything crashed. People have money. One of the things I think rich people learn is they got to put their money into something because they lost it, right? So they speculate, they buy things, they buy land, they buy houses, they buy apartment, they do all these kind of things. So it feels speculative with NFTs. I'm not sure if they're really helpful for creators, but it doesn't mean you can't check it out or find something that's interesting. And
Thank you.
lastly, I
So
would say,
we'll need to jump in because we need to do the announcing for the thing. So maybe the last thought, Haunani?
so I think the last thing to talk about is that there's a lot of crypto bro mania. And I think a lot of the focus in the communication is really towards males, and it really keeps somebody like me out. I don't see myself in the, it doesn't feel very welcoming. And the thing that's really quite funny is that, for example, this one called Lonely, they had to stop the service because they didn't find any women who were interested in their dating app. So, I do think that there's a thing going on where it's just a little too male, and you're not going to get the rest of the world to be interested in this. So here's some resources of where you can find it. I actually have more, but it's just too much. And with that, learn the domain. Be smart if you're going to dip your toes into the crypto waters, and learn to code. I mean, in this time and age with this year, I don't think it's wrong for I would encourage designers to learn to code, to have an option, plus to have you at the table to solve some of these wicked problems. With that, that's me, and thank you for listening to my travel. Bye.
I was on mute. So thank you, Haunani. I guess people
Thank
can
you.
you in the session Q&A session.
All right.
Perfect. So thank you for the personal stories, and I think it's quite important to sort of hear out how others are doing things. And thank you very much for sort of opening up around sort of the whole discovery and the discussions.